Andrew Mack here with Trial by Combat, MMA Island, and Fight Haas. Standing with Mike Polvere after Cage Titans 71, right? What was it?
Yeah, Cage Shine 71.
So just I didn't have a chance to talk to you at the press conference. So just it's been a couple of days now. What were your initial thoughts about the event?
Man, my initial thoughts, I mean, it was a great event. I mean, it really delivered on all fronts. And I truly think coming off of last year, you hear me talk about it a lot. We're always trying to backfill the talent and backfill the lot. You had a guy at the top of the card, and Andrew Valdina, main eventing for the first time. Um, Hillary Rose in the co-main event. I believe that was her first time that high in the card. Jack Congdon, he headlined once before in a title fight. It's just like, when you don't hear the Giannetti, you don't hear the Barrett, some of those usual names of, last year, it was kind of an emergence card where like you had some first time headliners and they really delivered. The fights were incredible. So my initial thoughts were it was like, here's another new wave of talent that are now going to get national headlines, like the guys like Giannetti and Barrett before them.
So just looking at the card, we had Connor Safford submission rear naked choke, Connor Holt TKO, Jude Voss decision, Omar Guerrero TKO, Ryan Genesis head kick, Kadu Lane's rear naked choke, Car Whitty KO, Eric Quinn TKO, Josiah Fry TKO. So that's just the amateurs,
Yeah.
and most of those were finishes. What was it, two decisions? Rest of them finishes. Always a good undercard wins a bunch of finishes.
Was it two or one
So,
decision? I was it two decisions? Yeah,
oh,
man.
it was
The
one.
whole
Yeah.
entire card. Yeah, the whole entire card. 11 out of 14, I believe. Um, 11 out of 14 finishes. I say it all the time. I think the dynamic inside of Plymouth Memorial Hall is the atmosphere that we build in that place. It just gets the fighters fired up, like even more than normal, to get out there and perform. And you see it, inside the cage. I mean, they're the crowd is amped up the entire night. You're there, you hear
Yep.
you're in the media room and you can hear them
Oh yeah.
banging through the walls. Um, so realistically, I just think that the atmosphere that we build in that venue, the venue itself, um, it just gives everybody that little extra oomph and that little extra specialty to really go out and perform. And this card was no exception. 11 out of 14 finishes.
So there's a couple things that came up during the press conference I want to run by you, get your opinions on. So starting off with Car Whitty, he wants a rematch with Ashwath Rao. What's your opinions on that?
I mean, listen, man, Cotter Whitty had an incredible year last year. I mean, the kid was, lights out until he ran into Ash Rao, and Ash Rao had that beautiful submission in his title defense. Ash Rao was at the event. He's looking like he's not going to be available till November. I think that's what he said he'd be coming next. So, you know, it's hard to, you know, a lot of people are like, all right, we'll just wait till the next card. And it's like, well, maybe they can't fight on the next card. And then when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to the next card, you can't fight on the card they can't. So sometimes it's hard. So I don't want to get too far ahead. I mean, if Ash was in for July, it's a no-brainer that that's a title fight rematch. But it seems like Ash is on the shelf until the fall. Um, what can I do in the meantime? I mean, Carter Whitty has shown that there's if Ash Rao's the number one guy, it's undisputable that Carter Whitty is the number two guy. Um, so yeah, maybe an interim title, or who knows? Maybe when Ash comes back, he's going to go pro. I don't know. I don't know. So I like the idea of a rematch. Carter went back out there. Schlink won that fight. He's the next in line for Ash. So I think that Carter getting a rematch would be the logical thing to do, but it's just more of a time framing. How it could line up.
Mm-hmm. Every time I ask Ash about going pro, he seems very hesitant. So I think he's happy where he is right now until his coaches tell him that it's time to step up. He's very like responsive to what his coaches advise him to do.
Yeah, I mean, and then let's be honest, between now and say the fall, we have July. So like another contender could emerge between now and then. Carter Whitty could decide, hey, I'm not waiting around. I want to get one more amateur. If it's Ash, it's not Ash, whatever, and I'll be pro by the time the fall comes around. So it's just it's hard. I mean, it would be easy if both guys were willing participants and were available for July, make that title fight rematch. But at this stage, it just seems like they could be two passing ships at this point. Maybe as pros, one day they can rematch.
And talking about Kadu Lanes and Eric Wynn, I believe Jeff said they're 6-0 this year so far. What's your opinion on just them coming to the scene, taking them by storm? They've only had, I think, 2 losses, and one of them was a very debatable decision.
Yeah, I mean, listen, man, Jeff Perez, if you remember, if you look back at his record, this kid fought for us, he's not a kid anymore, but Jeff Perez, um, you know, he fought for us as an amateur all the way up to the pros. I've known Jeff, he was a Marine, like his grit, determination, and just knowing him, coming out of his military career and then into his fight career and now going into the ranks of a coach. Um, I'm not too surprised. Knowing Jeff and his hard work and dedication to the sport, um, his great mindset that he has into the sport. Um, he's. It doesn't surprise me. Last year, when Eric Wynn and Ruben Batar were the 1-2 punch coming through the ranks, and then now here you are, Cadu Lanes, Eric Wynn continuing the charge. Yeah, man, and Jacobo Apito's
Oh
out
yeah.
of there. And the other thing is that they're getting great cross training with Sidiatong because Jeff Perez was a longtime Sidiatong guy coach as well. So now that he has his own gym, they still do cross training team trainings. So they're just getting a ton of work in, man. It's a good time for those guys at Back to Basics, and I'm really not surprised knowing Jeff and his fight career and seeing him kind of move over to coaching and the mindset. And I'll tell you this, there's no one more excited than Jeff Perez. Like I had to
Oh
calm him
yeah.
down. His guy wins. His guy wins, and Cadu Lanes wins, and he's screaming at Ryan Parmenta's crowd. And I'm like, calm the fuck down, dude. You got the win. You don't gotta be. He's like, I'll fight everybody. And it's like, listen, let's go. You can tell how jacked up Jeff Perez gets. Same thing when Eric Wynn won. He was all jacked up, jarring at the crowd. He's just so emotional, and he's so excited for the guy. So yeah, it's a great scene right now for Back to Basics. It's very reminiscent, um, kind of reminiscent. I guess there's some parallels between Lakeville MMA and those guys.
Hmm.
Lakeville MMA wasn't a former Cage Titans fighter. It was a school. But they just were a school that weren't on the scene a lot, and they came to Cage Titans probably 3-4 years ago, and that was like their first time kind of getting back into having fighters, and then bam, they made it just such an impact on the scene. And here we are a few years later, Lakeville MMA is with Jack Congdon, Miguel Savesin. They're looked at as one of the top schools around, and it's not going to be any much of a surprise that Back to Basics has that same kind of path and make that same kind of stamp on the Cage Titans community.
Going to the amateur vacant flyweight title. So Josiah Fry comes out of nowhere, 1-0, made his debut last week. He was what, like a 3-time NCAA champ, judo black belt in a title fight. Everyone sees 1-0 title fight. They're like, what's happening? And then he goes out and wins in the fifth round TKO. Just your thoughts on that?
Yeah, man. I mean, like, listen, Stanislav had 8 amateur fights, like
Hmm.
tons of experience. But you can't take lightly the experience that Josiah Fry had in competing at the highest level in the NCAA, the wrestling brackets. Somebody told me he was like 171-0. Like he
Yep.
never lost.
It's
Like this
about that,
kid's
right?
just, yeah, something about that. Like this kid just, he's an athlete. He's an athlete. He's a competitor, and you know that morning that he made his debut, I already had an inbox from his coach. It was like, if all goes well, he wants to jump in right away for next week for Cage Titans. And it just so happened that Matt Martinez pulled out, and then bam, Josiah Fry slides right in. And originally I was like, all right, well, I saved the fight. Let's make it just a regular 3-rounder. And they were like, no, 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 we want 5 rounds. We want a title fight. Like, if that's what Stanislav is fighting for, like we want that. So, man, this kid's been incredible. It's an incredible story. You can't script that any better. And they went out and put on an amazing performance, and no shortage of challengers that are waiting in the wings, which I think worked out really well for Josiah because I'll tell you this, like I've been trying to get Josiah a fight before, and with his wrestling accolades, not many people were looking to step in and fight him. So now that he has the title, all of a sudden, there's guys that are like, all right, well, if I want to prove I'm the best, I kind of have to go through this guy, you know, and that little extra on the line makes it worth stepping in there and taking on a guy like Josiah Fry. When in the past, fighting an 0-0 3-time, national champ, it's like, yeah, no, there's got to be other guys out there. I'd rather fight somebody else. Now it's like, if you want to be the big dog in New England, you got to fight them. And I got to say, man, has the flyweight division stepped up and, welcomed the challenge. And it's kind of like, the flyweights have kind of a bad rep. At one point in time, it was on the chopping block for the UFC, and it was like getting somebody to save the division. It's like, man, the division's hot right now. Like, you got Calvin Dalton, you got Jack Barry, you got Matt Martinez. That's still not, he was his title shot. So there's some worthy competitors there. So it's a fun time to be a flyweight in New England and in Cage Titans.
So I have something to be a little biased because Calvin Dalton is my teammate, and we did that face off in the locker room. You talked to him earlier. Is that any
Yeah.
closer?
So
Anything you can say, tell me?
yeah, man. Listen, Calvin Dalton, the only reason he wasn't stepping in for this title fight was because I think he was graduating
Yeah,
college, right? Was that it?
yeah.
Graduating
He
college.
was graduating college again, drunk.
Yeah, yeah. So he was graduating college, and it just like when he was coming back from college from his senior year and his graduation, the timing just didn't work out where he could compete for us this past weekend. So he was like, all right, I'm coming back in July. Like, I'm going to fight for the title in July. And it was originally going to be him and Matt Martinez and essentially, or him and Stanislav. So, both Matt Martinez and Stanislav didn't want to wait around. So that's why we kind of put this fight together for this past card, May 24th. And Calvin was always going to kind of be waiting in the wings for the winner in July. So I did talk to Calvin earlier today. He's going to confirm a few things with his coaching staff, make sure they're available, make sure that they feel that it's a strong enough camp he can put in, because you got to,
Mhm.
like we just mentioned, he was a senior in college, graduating. So like, so we're hoping by the end of the day, maybe by the time I get off the phone with you, we'll have an answer, and we'll be dropping it next week. If we can kind of put a bow on this. If not, there's no shortage of guys looking to step in with Jack Barry, Matt Martinez. There's a guy from Maine who's undefeated 5-0 looking to come down as well. So and I told Calvin, if it doesn't work out for July, like, hey, listen, man, September, if that's the time frame, we'll come back in that one.
Main guy, is that Jackson Campbell?
Jackson Campbell,
Yeah.
absolutely, yes, that's him. Yeah.
All right, going to the pros, starting with Jacobo Apito. So
Whew.
he had this entire gimmick with fighting this cow. Did he tell you this, the cowboy thing?
Yes, yes, yes.
He had this entire gimmick with fighting a cowboy, and then it's just some other guy. But he comes in and
Yeah.
just vicious elbows. Just, do you see those elbows?
Yeah, man. So Jacobo Pito is one interesting individual. Like, I've known him for a long time. When he was an amateur, all the way up to his pros. I made the joke. I dressed up as him one, Halloween edition of Table Titans. He's always interesting. He's always kind of, when he speaks, you listen. He's always got a kind of some plan. And I saw him tagging the horse guy, and I'm just like, shit, he tagged the wrong dude. And I'm like, all right, he's gonna catch on eventually. And then it just got legs, and it kept going and going and going. And I'm like, so finally the week before the fight, I messaged Jeff Perez. I was like, hey, listen, man, at what point do you tell Jacobo that's the wrong Cole Cameron? And he's like, yeah, we kind of picked up on it. He's like, but we're just kind of having some fun with it. We got some things that we're gonna do. And then Jacobo came out with the My Little Pony hairdo with the blue hair. And I think he came out with that like cowboy jacket on for weigh-in. So like he had the enigma that is Jacobo. It worked, and it was fun. It was funny, and got people talking. But yeah, I was very well aware of it. As for the fight itself, Jacobo has been training for a long time.
Hmm.
Many people forgot about him because he disappeared for a few years after his pro debut, I believe. And we haven't really saw him, and he reemerged at a totally new camp over with Jeff Perez. And honestly, like, he's also filled out as a human being. Like, he was a lot skinnier. He competed at 25 and 35. He was a two division champion as an amateur, but he's really filled out in that bantamweight body, and he's looking incredible and super impressive the way he works the clinch and for this finish. But last fight he was wins by Tarico Plata. He there's always a little something, and I love that we have Jacobo because as we've said all along, even like a guy like the party, we set the stage. And what you do with it from there is up to you. And Jacobo is one of those guys that gets it. Yes, it's about the fight, but he kind of gets all the other stuff, the entertainment stuff, which I love about Jacobo.
When I first heard about Jacobo, I think it was before his fight against Smythe, and that's when Smythe was on a tear, and now it's his time to go on a tear. So, I mean, that just teaches me just because someone loses against a top contender doesn't mean to like put them out of my mind yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that MMA is such a great sport because one loss doesn't define your career. You got champions, and with the exception maybe of John Jones or some of these other guys like recently, but like guys back in the day, like you'd have a couple losses, you got a couple blemishes because you're taking tough fights early. It's not the boxing model where you keep all the tough guys away from each other, and then you get these perfect records that are just inflated. In MMA, you can lose a few and bounce back and rip off five in a row and be back in title contention. One of our biggest stars like the party. I mean, the guy was 11-6, but he was our champ. He was 5-0 in Memorial Hall, and people loved him. That whether he won or lost. But yeah, I think that MMA is just unique, and I'm assuming the next fight we're going to talk about. But I think that's what it's unique about is like guys will be undefeated and face each other early in their careers because a loss is not going to define them. It's actually more helpful to get a loss in some points in your career because then you know what to go back to the drawing board and work on before maybe some of those holes in your game that you didn't realize are there get worse.
Oh yeah. So speaking of that next fight, you have undefeated Nick Eldridge coming on like a week notice, 3 weeks after winning a title fight up in Maine, going against Phil Lucino, 3-0 prospect. Just when I saw that fight announced, I was at the doctor's. I'm like, okay, what's this live about? And I just see that announced. I'm like, holy shit! And then it delivered as well.
Absolutely. This is just what we were just talking about. Like, you guys in other sports, they keep the studs away from each other, the rising prospects here at Cage Titans. It's you're taking tough fights and guys are excited to take tough fights. So I think with Nick Eldridge, he could have rode high on his NEF title fight victory and partied and ate and had a couple more beers but he was right back in it and he took on a tough fight. I mean, as for Felicino, same thing. Like when his original opponent dropped out, this was definitely a huge step up in opponent.
Oh yeah.
And he could have just, tucked his tail and said, you know what? I'm kind of good. I'm not going to do, I'm just going to wait for the next one. This fight might not be good for me. Um, he said, you know what? I'm up for the challenge. And, he didn't come out victorious in this one, but it shows me a lot of where his mindset is, where his bravado is, and things of that nature. Like when push came to shove, he marched forward. And though he wasn't victorious in this fight, I think we learned a lot about Filistino. And as for Nick Eldridge, I mean, this kid's just looked incredible. I mean, 4 fights, 4-0 now as a pro, multiple time amateur champion for multiple promotions. That's a fun guy to have in our roster in the bantamweight division.
Going to the next one, Jack Condon versus Zach Davis. Jack Condon in probably a knockout of the year. Just continuing the fight, tough contenders. Zach Davis made that fight a war as well. With that elbow, Jack was just bleeding everywhere. The reaction to just that bloodbath.
Dude, honestly, Zach Davis in the lead up, he said it was gonna be fight of the night. Like it was gonna be swinging until somebody dropped, and Zach delivered on all fronts. That fight was insane. It looked like Jack was in deep trouble, and he was able to battle back. Something great we were able to learn from Jack. Is his tenacity and his drive to keep pushing forward because he's split open, blood pouring down his face, and he was on his heels for a little bit, and he showed he's always in the fight and showed a lot of dog in him, and that's something you don't find out about somebody until they're in that situation, and Jack passed. Um, you know, I love what Jack's done with his career. He's never shied away from challenges. We were talking again. I guess this is the ongoing theme. Like you have guys that try to stay away from challenges to build up this beautiful record, and then they get there to the UFC or wherever it may be, and they realize that beautiful record beating up guys that they should beat. Those weren't fights. Those were just one-sided beatings. You were beating people up in front of your friends. Jack's been in a fight, and he's been in a fight multiple times. Even going back to a year ago when he took on Piersma, I think he was 4-0 at the time, and he's fighting for a title fight, and he comes up short, and Piersma goes on to the road to the UFC. Immediately when Jack was healed up, he took on a contender, a Dana White contender series vet and a PFL vet, and Kyron Bowen. Like he's just never shied away from tough fights, and I think he's somebody that's what if he does get to the next level, which it looks like he may. He's been tested at all levels, so that he'll have a much better showing when he gets there because he's been in fights and he's been in tough situations. So yeah, great fight. And then Zach Davis, I mean, shit, that kid was incredible. He's exciting. He's the type of guys cage sides like the bleach blonde hair, the big chain, showing up with the Lakers stuff. I had so many people at the press conference messaging me being like, dude, I like this kid. This kid's cool.
Oh yeah.
And I think with a performance like that, he made some fans.
Mm-hmm.
But on the negative side, for me, it's going to be hard to match that guy up because he's got some serious talents. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
But we will see him again if you can make a fight, right? He's not going to
Dude,
be like a one and done.
Listen, man, the first fight that comes to mind is him and Earthquake. I think that'd be a banger.
That's a nice one. Yeah.
I haven't talked to anybody about it, but like Earthquake was in the DMs saying he wanted a shot at Jack Congdon. So I was like, well, I think Jack's on the shelf for a little bit. So I was like, man, Earthquake versus Cadillac would be fucking fun. So like maybe that's something I offer out there. We'll see what happens.
On Jack, so his only losses to Piersma. Obviously, we got him to go to bigger and better things, UFC, Contender Series, tough maybe. But you can't always rely on those opportunities being there. So, if, God forbid, he doesn't get an opportunity, what do you do with him once he's healed up?
Dude, listen, we could do whatever we want with Jack. I mean, this guy's never said no to anybody, and he's always wanted the toughest test. If for some crazy reason the UFC didn't take him or the Contender Series didn't take him, he came back to me, I could throw him any name. And he's not the guy that's going to go, well, I think I'm one more away from the UFC. They said if I got one more win, like, can you give me an easier guy? That's just not him. So, I mean, realistically, if this isn't the time for him, I can do anything. I could put a 12-0 killer in front of him. He'll be like, yep, no problem. He's not that guy that would shy away from any challenge. And he's not that guy that's going to say, oh, well, I got a pretty record right now. I don't want to damage it. Give me a layup. He's not that guy. So honestly, I keep saying I could do anything with Jack. Jack is, and it's not me, it's him. It's his mentality. And it really is like, he's just been an incredible guy to work with, him and his team. It's just no fluff. There's no fluff with that guy. Like, he wants the toughest, and he wants to prove that he's the toughest. He's a fighter in every bit of the way. Like, he really is, man. It's been an incredible journey with him.
I just got a notification from Zoom that the meeting will end in 10 minutes. I guess Merrimack, after I graduated, took away my extended meeting privileges, so we got 10 more minutes. The co-main fight, made history with the first Cage Titans female professional champion. Your thoughts on that?
Let me see.
Oh, your camera turned off. Okay.
Yep, there we go. Man, it was awesome. Like, I'll be honest, like, Hillary Rose has never wanted to shy away and just kind of call me out and just be like, I want to be the first commentator that's a female, and cornered me at a gym, and she made it happen. She cornered me with you in our post fight press conference a couple of shows ago, where he's like, you've never had a champion in the female professional division, like I want to be the first. And it was great. It honestly, it's about time. Um, you know, it's it's been a long time coming. And as you know, I mean, it's no secret that the women's divisions are not exactly the most robust divisions. There's not a lot of people around.
Yep.
You can tell with Ariana Melendez, she beat Danielle Heinley, and then it was like, all right, who else is there for her to fight? And so Hillary went on this resurgence in her career. So it was really incredible, and it's also just amazing to like be able to fulfill these people's dreams. They're all looking to fulfill their dreams. And Hillary said at the press conference, like maybe her dream isn't going to get to the UFC, but like this is it. Like this is going to be a pinnacle of her career. And then, so it was amazing to be able to put that fight together between both girls. They are both professionals. They both really brought it. They both wanted it. It was back and forth. It could have went either way. Um, and then in typical Hillary fashion, she put the challenge out to me to say I want to be champ. So we're working on a 105 atom weight title fight for her, and she actually called out a girl by name. So you might be seeing that. So Hillary does a good job. She's called me out on stuff when she wanted it, and we made it happen. And then she made my job easier by calling out one specific person for her quest to be a champ.
When she made that call, I could just sense your face, just like, she wants another one. Who am I gonna
Yeah.
find?
So when she made the call out, like originally, like, and I'm like, oh shit, man, my job's gonna be so hard. Like, it's so hard to find females. Like, never
Yep.
mind a atom weight title fight. Like, there's barely a division for 115. Now I gotta find a 105er. But she just so like in the split second, it was like, oh damn it. And then in the blink of an eye, it was like, ooh, she named somebody, and that person already DM'd me, and I'm like, oh okay, all right, cool. Like we can do this. We can do this.
Talking about Melendez. So, to be transparent, I do have a connection with Melendez. My former employer did sponsor her, but
Nice.
from what I
No,
watched,
Ariana.
yeah, from
Yeah, I
what
was
I
gonna say
watched,
Ariana's great, man. She's awesome. She's as tough as they come, and she's down there at Fusion XL, and she's training with killers all the time, going out to Vegas and training. She has the right management team at Ruby Sport behind her. I think she bounced back from this. I mean, she was in a dogfight, and she's gonna go back to the drawing board. We talked about this before with fighters. Like a loss doesn't define you. She's 5-2 now. She's going to regroup. Maybe she'll work on a few things that she thought she had in shortcomings with the fight with Hillary. But like, remember, Hillary is a 20 fight pro veteran, give or take, and she had 8 or 9 fights as an amateur. Like Ariana was talking about when Ariana just started fighting, how Hillary kind of talked her off the ledge from trying to quit the sport after she had 2 losses in a row, and Hillary was the pro at that time. So there was a lot of experience she was giving up, and then she showed she belongs there. And I think that Ariana will go back to the drawing board, work on a few things that I think that her and her coaching staff will kind of see from the fight, and come back better than the ever. I don't think she should be deterred. I don't think she will be deterred. The goal still remains with her. She's still young in her career. 5-2, she rattles off 2 or 3 more fights, and she's 8-2, and she's sitting pretty for that strawweight division inside the UFC.
so that fight was very close. It was a split decision. A couple of people I talked to, they thought Rose won. Some people I talked to thought Melendez won. I'm happy either way because I love them both. Since it was so close, I asked Rose if she'd be open for a rematch. She said she would be open to it if Melendez wants it. I DM Melendez. She says run it back. What are your thoughts on that? You don't have to matchmake. It's Ferrari right there for you.
I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I mean, it was a super tight fight. I mean, I'll have to I'm not saying I would be mad at it. Absolutely not. I got to see where both sides are. Like,
Yep.
I think that when you ask the fighters, they want to be very respectful
Hmm.
and say, "Oh, of course I would. Of course we can run it back," or "Yeah, I would do it." But then when you get the coaches involved and you kind of get the real kind of you know the real feedback. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Melendez team was like, "Hey, listen, yeah, we would run it back. It would be cool, but we're cool with doing some other options, and I wouldn't be surprised if Hillary's team was like, hey, listen, man, let her get the 105 belts first, and then maybe come back and she could run it back with Ariana. I wouldn't be. I haven't talked to any side.
Hmm.
I'm just, I think when you have such a close fight, it's easy and it feels good in the moment to be like, yeah, we can run it back. And then when you sit back after a couple of days and you talk to your team, you know, yeah, that I think the tune might change, but I could be wrong. Who knows?
And going to our main event, Andrew Valdina and Joe Panifiel. I mean, based on PFL's last fight, he was just swinging for the fences, going for blood, and Andrew Valdina completely shuts out his style.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just showed really realistically, like, Valdina and his team, Hook and Roll, Pete Luciani, his head coach, they really game planned well for this fight. I think that the party fought the party's fight, which he always fights. And I think that they just kind of had the formula to kind of not get into a dogfight and play a tactical strategy in this one. And I think that's where the edge was for Valdina and his squad. The party, though, man, he was like, I want to see where I'm at leading into this fight. I think the party's still the party, man. Like, the party is still the party. Like, there's no luster on him right now. Like, he went in there and performed. In the fifth round, he was close to stopping it at a certain point as well.
Hmm.
As he said, he's like, I wish I didn't showboat a little bit as much in the first couple rounds and poured it on like I did in the fifth round. Um, so yeah, man, I said the party continues, man. There's no shame in this. See what happens when he rebounds and what he wants to do next. But I think that the strategy of the team for Valdina was really the come into play, and I think that um, it's a testament to Valdina because realistically, like the party always is able to egg people on into these firefights, and that's where he's at his best. And Valdina just pumped the brakes, was really strategic with his entries and exits, and he refused to get into that firefight, and I think that was a little different for the party because usually he's able to get you into the firefight where his odds of winning go through the roof. So yeah, man, great fight for both guys. It was worth the wait. The
Oh
hype
yeah.
was real, and it really delivered. Memorial Hall. It's always the interesting thing when you have fight cards. Like, do the people stay away around to the end? They're there for their friends, and then they kind of bounce after their friends fight. I think a testament to both those guys. They really sold this fight. They really garnered interest from the community, and the building was still full towards the end of the night for this fight at when it got over at midnight. So great fight by both guys. I couldn't have been happier. It's kind of very similar to the Giannetti versus Barrett. Like when the hype and the buildup is so much, it's like the fight never really lives up to it. I think that this fight lived up to the hype, and I think both guys can walk away with their heads high. Like even you look back at the Barrett versus Giannetti fight, though Barrett won, Giannetti was like, he had that second round where he could have finished that fight, and he had his high points. And I think here is very similar. Valdina won, but the party can hang his head high because he had a couple opportunities to stop this fight. He came close to stopping the fight. So yeah, I think it was great. It was a great way for this to kind of finalize this little grudge match that they had.